The exhibition Against Photography addresses the idea of photography, but also photographic documents through the history of the Arab Image Foundation's collection that is now almost 20 years old. So this is why there is one wall that represents a timeline that crosses the whole exhibition from beginning to an end, going into 4 different moments. The first is a moment of apprehension, let's call it. It's the moment where me and my colleagues in the Arab Image Foundation in the very, very early days started to be confronted with patterns that were recurring in different photographs, in different cities, in different histories. So whenever we opened an album, we realized that there were pictures that so similar to other pictures in other people's albums. In Cairo, Alexandria, Aleppo, or Amman, or Beirut, or Tripoli, a lot of the photographs, very personal photographs, were very much alike in the sense they addressed people's attitudes that were so similar in the 50s or 60s. And the first room actually comments on this. It's a presentation of 3 different ideas. One of them is the status of the automobile, the car in people's photographs, like a member of the family, like a piece of furniture that people want to be photographed with. The other series is a series about the imagination that is tied to the means of transport, specifically airplanes, cars, and ships. And this is more a place in the imagination of people. The third one is the third series is about the shadow of the photographer that often falls onto his subject. So the subject and the photographer become one in that specific picture. And this is a series of photographs of details from images where the shadow of the photographer falls. The first room is a descriptive room. It's the only room where you see photographs completely with no interventions from by me. You see them. You see the front of the picture, but also you see the back of the picture, considering it an object that has 2 equal facets. Very often we think of the front of the photograph as the main facet, and we think of the back of the photograph as something secondary. And in this display, I was privileging both equally. From there on, the timeline crosses 3 other rooms. One of them is more the historical context for the practice of collecting pictures. And sometimes we are talking about same pictures. There are some pictures that you see in the first room that you see also in the films held by the owners of the pictures before giving the pictures to the Arab Image Foundation. So this is more these 2 films on photography, People and Modern Times, and on photography, Dispossession and the Times of Struggle. These 2 films are about the 2 lives that photographs lived in, once in the hands of their owners and once in the custody of the Arab Image Foundation. And it juxtaposes these two lives, one next to another, giving also a voice to the owners of the pictures, giving them space so they can appear while talking about their pictures. In other terms, it's rooting the pictures back in their original context after they have been taken away into this new preservation clinic, let's say new preservation institution.
لما دخلت على كل وانا بنابلس نقلت اختي وامي واخوي اجوا عندي على نابلس. بعدها عليها المستشفى وبدأوا المستشفى هذه ما بعرف
Boyat Jian. Taken Zagazik in school, Armenian school.
The third room is dedicated to the body of film. It's a selection of photographs that have undergone specific situations that are either broken up by the climatic conditions, or there are negatives that were stuck to each other due to flood, such as the case of the series Faces to Faces, where you see glass plates of portraits of French soldiers in Lebanon in the 40s juxtaposed or like stuck with glass plates that represent portraits of people from the city, from Tripoli, and these were made by Antranik Anouchian, whose studio was flooded somewhere in the 70s, and which led to those plates being stuck one to another. An important series in that room as well is a series based on the negatives of Antranik Bakirjian, who is a photographer from Jerusalem who lived through the 1948 war and who saw his own home bombarded and destroyed, and who had to be displaced from his house in order to and lived or be sheltered. He got sheltered by the Armenian convent in Jerusalem, and this is where he continued working. So very often in that period of time when he was displaced away from his own, away from his dark room, his negatives were not properly washed, and this is why they aged so badly. So parallel to the stories that were recorded on those negatives, the body of film itself was telling another story, that of the emulsion being broken up, that of the emulsion being pushed away from the celluloid film on which it was attached. The fourth room, and as we go towards the end of the exhibition, images start to disappear from the show, and they are replaced by more abstract representations of photographs. Considering, as I said, photographs as objects, the last room in the show focuses mainly on phenomena relating to the storage of photographs. There is one series that talks about the surface of disintegrating films, negatives, and this is a series that is based on 3D mapping of only the surface of the photograph without any attention to the image that's recorded on that photographs. And these photos were scanned with a Lucida scanner that is an image blind scanner. So what you see are different configurations that are interpreted in different colors, sometimes in silver, sometimes in black, sometimes using intaglio printing, and sometimes embossing of those 3D textures that are the surface of negatives. The athlete, the negative of the athlete, this is a reconstruction of the negative of the athlete, boosting its destruction, let's say, boosting the damaged side. The original is a tiny glass plate that is 10 by 15 or 10 by 14. And here it's blown up in size. adding on the body of the glass a lot of dirt, a lot of earth, elements from glass, trying to reconstruct it into an archaeological find. This athlete represents a phenomenon that is very much known in glass plates and in analog photographs. This is when two negatives contaminate each other when they are subjected to light. If they are not, negatives continue to live inside cool storage, continue to change, and when they are subjected to light and they are staying one next to another, the shadow of one falls onto the other. So you have elements of one negative that are printed on the other negatives. And I use that phenomenon in order to have a statement on history, because photographs are an integral part of writing history. Also in the exhibition there are two characters, two photographers that I worked on very much, represented through two films. One of them is Her and Him.
Fait avec le Rolleiflex 12 poses différentes. Les habillés, petit à petit, elle commence à déshabiller. Les bas, les souliers, tout complètement déshabillé. C'est la seule cliente elle a proposé de faire des photos nues.
And it's a film made with and about the photographer Van Leo. The other one is Endnote, which is part of the 28 Nights and a Poem project about Hashim al-Madani and the excavation in Studio Shahrazad. They are in the exhibition as footnotes, but they are standalone pieces as well, bringing into this whole configuration these two personalities, one from Cairo, one from Saida. The first Van Leo is from Cairo and Hashim al-Madani is from Saida in South Lebanon. In the vitrine, that's the last piece that was designed actually for that space, because it's perceived from the outside. I decided to have a display of all the different boxes that constitute the archive in cool storage. So these are the exact same number of boxes, the exact same measures of every box that exists on the shelf in the conservation room. And if you count them and go to the Arab Image Foundation, they are exactly the same. That count, by the way, was made in the summer when the collection of Rifat Shadirji from Iraq, Iraqi architect, was still at the foundation. And because that collection left the Arab Image Foundation in January 2017, I decided to still represent it, but represent those boxes a little bit detached from the wall on which they were stuck. So taking them away from that wall left traces, and I wanted those traces to remain visible as a trace of an absent collection.